Hey, everybody. Mark and I have over 20 years of experience as therapists and as addicts in long term successful recovery. We know better than anyone what works and what doesn't to break out of porn and sex addiction, heal betrayal trauma, and reclaim your relationship.
And we've poured all of our personal and professional recovery and healing experience into a first of its kind program for addicts, spouses, and couples. We call it Dare to Connect.
At least 4 times every week, we engage with you in real time, in the trenches, giving you the knowledge and the tools to take back your life and relationship.
Whatever else you've done on your journey for healing and recovery, you've never done anything like this.
Mark and I, we've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Don't reinvent the wheel.
We all know tomorrow never comes. Look, don't wait one more day to change. Claim your free 2-week trial today at daretoconnectnow.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSE Squared podcast.
Hey, everybody, Mark and Steve on the PBSE podcast. We had a partner who sent in, frankly, it was a pretty painful thing to read, just transparent. Just hearing her describe what she's going through with her addict partner, who is in recovery, sounds like he's doing some great things, but they have a long history of him, typical as we addicts do in porn and sex addiction, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of, manipulation, deception, ton of scanning and objectification in public spaces where she's watched him do that all these years, learning what he looked at in pornography and the kinds of women and bodies and stuff that he pursued, and just getting the whole history through disclosure of all of the people and stuff he pursued and wanted in his addiction that, quote, is not her. And she has actually tried, and this is what just really tugged on my heart. This woman has gone above and beyond in trying to measure up and be all the things that she thinks she needs to be desired, pursued, and wanted by her addict husband, all the way up to altering her body in every possible way imaginable. I mean, I listened to what she described and what she sent us, and I'm like, okay, this is like hundreds of thousands of dollars expended in surgeries and enhancements and endless exercise, time spent by, she's like, I'm going to be the perfect body with regard to what he's been pursuing all these years. And I will become desirable to him. And what she's realizing after all of that, she's around 40-ish. She's had children. She drives a minivan as a mom. And she says, I'm realizing, in fact, this even pursued her back to a thing she struggled with as a teenager, back to anorexia. She became so obsessed with all of it. And she finally realized, I will never be able to win this game. I'll never be able, at my age, I can't keep this up. The clock's working against me. And so she's like, I realize that this has completely derailed me. And I frankly don't know what to do now. I thought I had achieved the utopia, the holy grail of the body and being sexual and all things that he would want. And it would be exclusively me now. And she's like, I realize this is a losing battle.
Yeah.
Now what? And we're just breaking our heart to read this whole thing.
Absolutely. Well, and what complicates it is it sounds like in the last several months, the addict partner, has become, he's done a couple of things. He started to get serious about recovery in some ways, even though there was very much a staggered nature to it of disclosing things. He's gotten progressively more honest, and he's starting to develop some consistency in the process. So he's he's making positive change, but as far as her safety level goes, that is obviously quite low, and that is, concerning things a lot. This is an interesting submission, and I like Mark's first take on, or Mark's first thought on this when we were getting ready to podcast today. Why is sex, because it does bring up an interesting kind of dynamic that we don't always talk about often. Why is sex and sexuality such a high priority for not just guys who struggle with sex and porn addiction, but also a high priority for so many partners out there?
Yeah,
Um,
we talk constantly with guys who are caught in porn and sex addiction, and what's one of the things that we help them to realize? Guys, your pursuit of porn and sexual outlets are surface symptoms of much deeper behaviors. And we always ask
yeah,
the guys, what's under this? What's really going on for you? But we a lot of times the partners aren't invited to look and say, okay, what's under all this for me? Like, why would a woman go through this gargantuan process over years and years to perfect her body and to show up in every way sexually and physically for this guy? What's under all of that for her? And
yeah,
what's the message she's been receiving from probably the time she was a little girl in
absolutely.
this culture?
Yeah, because I mean, what we see here, obviously, on a podcast like this, we kind of have to infer a few things. But based on the extensive submission that was given to us, I mean, very, very much, probably more so than the typical partner that we would come across, she really has invested, as Mark said, incredible amounts of resources in competing with addiction,
Yeah.
being a direct competitor. She actually says in her submission, "I am, I've been on this pursuit to become more attractive than these women." Right? I'm trying to become, I've changed everything about myself to try to become kind of that ideal physical manifestation of what he keeps looking at.
Well, and she said
Um,
something, and you and I have done this long enough that we really can read her real intent behind these words. But this has become so intense for her over the years that she said, I want him to lust after me and objectify me like he does them.
mhm.
Now, you and I know that that's not surface what she's asking, but
Yeah,
you feel the depth of feeling in her when she goes to the extent to say those words. I want him to lust after me, right? Like he does them.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, and that is an interesting one because, and I think we're going to come to that, because yeah, that's something that I know we want to talk about a little bit today. Um, and this does touch on multiple other issues, right? I mean, first things first, it totally touches on culture, right? This crazy, I don't know, I can't think of another way to say it. This sex saturated culture,
Yeah,
right?
sex
That we live
obsessed,
in.
body
Um,
obsessed.
Absolutely, where there is so much placed on the outer veneer. There is so much, and not even just the outer veneer and qualities, it directly on the sexual outer veneer.
Yes.
Um, and it brings up additional questions like for the individual, right? In this day and age, in this culture that we live in, that just seems to get more sex saturated by the day, what does it mean to quote unquote be sexy or quote unquote sexual?
Mm,
And what are the deep needs behind the desire for a person to be those things,
right.
right? And because and we won't go into this too much today for sake of time. There's not nearly enough time to fully flesh out any one topic, including this one today. Here, only there was a program like Dare to Connect that you could join. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. um, but this isn't just for partners, right? We talk about this, for example, on Dare to Connect all the time. What does it mean to be desired, not just as a partner who's found themselves competing with addiction or whatever, but for the addict? What does it mean to finally feel wanted, to feel pursued? Because we rarely talk about that other side, right? This is a two-way street of, we addicts, we obviously pursue um, sex and sexuality in our quest to connect or to escape or to lust or whatever. But as is talked about in many 12-step groups, and wisely so, the desire to be lusted after, in my experience, is just as powerful, if not more so. So it's a question that happens on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as addicts, we talk a lot about how we lust and we pursue all these sexual outlets, these pornographic outlets. But one of the things that's often missed, which was a big part of addiction for me, not only was it me lusting and pursuing all that, I wanted to be lusted after. I wanted all
Absolutely.
these fantasy things to come back and lust after Mark, to desire Mark, to want Mark, to pursue Mark.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what's under this for the addict, because I was desperate to be affirmed, to be wanted, to be good enough, to be okay, to be right. All these things is
Yeah.
part of what's under that. And often that's missed in what the addiction is about.
Well, and one of the things that I think we can tell you from, our years in addiction is, as guys who have pursued not just lusting, but being lusted after, is that even when you feel that from someone, or from porn, or even realistically being lusted after in a sexual way, on a, strictly in isolation, is very hollow and is very unsatisfying, contrary to what the pursuit of the addiction would say. And we observe and see that in the clients that we work with, both in our clinics and in Dare to Connect on the partner side as well. For partners who set off on a journey like this, the sad reality is that so many who go to these kinds of extremes to compete in that realm, even if a partner can actually achieve that, which I don't think is realistic in most cases, but let's say that for sake of argument it was. What a partner inevitably finds is that being pursued the way that the addict pursued their addiction is very unsatisfying and very hollow and very isolated. I mean, I'll speak to my own personal experience. I remember when I was in my addiction years, and I would be in the middle of, for example, I'd be in the middle of an addiction cycle. Because this really brings up a question of authenticity, right? And I guess before I go into this, we probably ought to talk about the overall question here of asking a partner, right? Is the pursuit, is the thing that you're striving for every partner out there who might find themselves in this place, is what you're pursuing, A, not just realistic, but B, is it what you really want to have happen? In other words, do you really want to become his porn?
Mm.
Is that something that you would really want to do? Because I can tell you, and this is, just going to sound like a real jerk face here, going back to my old days, but when I was in that addict mode of pursuing, sexual content of whatever form it was, or sexual engagement in whatever form it took, I didn't care about anyone.
No.
I didn't care about them, meaning the person on the screen or the other person in real life when I was lusting or pursuing. I didn't care about the consequences to my marriage. I didn't care about me. I didn't care about anything. I cared about one thing: feeling good. That's it.
That's it.
Nothing else. The whole idea of anything remotely, hailing from a place of love, being present, being connected, being in the moment, I could care less. When I would get in a porn binge, I was just flicking through images and videos at rocket speed, right? I would even fast forward the porn videos because I wanted to get to those special parts, quote unquote, that only I wanted to watch. I was objectifying what was already objectified material,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
You're objectifying the objectification.
I
Yeah.
was filtering out already just sexualized material because my brain was so focused on this pursuit of just feeling good. Nothing else mattered. And I say that, as an outing of myself, because that is a sad notion. But I say that because I think it's important for spouses who listen to a podcast like this to understand, when their addict partner is in that place, it is not a place. Not only is it not a place like what we usually talk about, where healthy competition, the rules of like competition don't apply. It goes so far beyond that, because you're in the land of the Mad Hatter, where it's not even, you're beyond even, I don't even know how to say this. You're beyond desiring what you're seeing or what you're experiencing when you're in that true addiction place. And it's more just in a place of just anything that feels good. You don't even care. I don't even know how else to say it. Does
Well,
that
and
make sense, Mark?
I think the best way I could probably ask this is, do you want to become his cocaine? Do you want to become
Yes,
his heroin? Do you want to become
yeah,
his alcohol? Because this is in many ways exactly the same.
it is.
I didn't care about anything or anyone, including myself. I was just pursuing my heroin hit with pornography and sexual outlets. That's all it was.
Yeah,
I was an object or a thing wanting to go pursue another object or a thing. So a thing could do something to things to get the big pleasure gigantic hit.
it's a great way to put
That's
it.
it. That's all it was.
Yeah,
And so I know this amazing partner, that's not what she was saying when she said, I want to be lusted after and objectified by him like he does these other women. I know that's not what she's referring to, but for addicts, that's all it is. You're just
yeah,
my heroin hit.
yeah. And so it does bring up, the real question. What is a partner? What do partners of an addict want in recovery,
Mm,
right? Because they see what their husbands or partners are doing with with this content, with other partners, with whatever. What's behind the notion, and a very understandable notion of, well, I've got to outwit, outsmart, outlast, his other stuff. I've got to outperform those other things so that I can be in that seat.
well,
But the
well,
question
and
becomes,
let's talk that for just a quick sec.
yeah,
Why do you have to outwit and outcompete? Because as a partner, you watch him in public, and you're yearning for him to be fully present with you, to be
yes,
all into you in that place. And what do you see him? He's all into everybody else. His
right,
eyes are everywhere else. His attention is everywhere else. His desire in pursuing is obviously the importance and what matters is everywhere else. And as a partner, you're saying, I want all of that I'm observing to all be focused on me. That's fully understandable, right? Look
yeah,
at that passion. Look at that focus. Look at all that I'm observing in him. Can I somehow get all that coming back towards me?
mm,
And now comes the competing. And now, right, you enter quote into the game, into the playing field to try to win him over to you and have all that energy that you're seeing expended everyone everywhere else and on everyone else to have that energy come back in your direction.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's just make sure we clarify the desire to want to be wanted sexually by your partner. We would not say in any way is unhealthy. Okay, let's just make
Oh,
that
that's
clear. We're not
awesome.
we're not demonizing that in any way at all, because I
No.
think every partner on planet Earth, both on both sides of the coin, we all want to be wanted, and we all deserve to be desired or pursued by our partner in ways, including sexually. But remember, what we talk about oftentimes on this program is that one of the great lies that addiction, whether it's pornography or other outlets, teach is that out of all the ways to connect with a person, all the other ways become stripped away in this crazy world, and the only one that's left is sex, right? Rather than sex being one method of pursuit or one method of connection, it becomes the method of pursuit, the method
Exactly.
of connection, right?
Exactly.
It's all that matters. Nothing else matters. It's just all about that. And so I think that it always takes us back to that discussion for partners. If a partner can look below that, again, very understandable desire of, I want him to look at me that way, what does that really mean? Yeah, it definitely means sexually, but in what other ways is that
Yes.
conveyed, right?
And
Um,
there are words. I mean, you and Steve, you and I have been doing this a long time. And what are the words that we've heard partners over several decades use to begin to try to describe this? And they'll say things like, I want to be cherished.
mm,
I want
yeah,
to be pursued. I want to be desired. I want to be exclusive. Big when we hear, I want to be seen by
yeah,
him, really seen. I want his loyalty. I want his faithfulness. I want him to be fully present. I want him to be here with me, right? I'm sure that all the words I just used that you and I've heard partners use are not exclusively sexual, physical body words. I know they're
yeah,
not, because partners have expressed us often in tears about what that means to be cherished, pursued, desired, exclusive, seen, fully present. It goes part of it's sexual, but it goes way beyond that.
hmm yeah, no, absolutely. And so, when it comes to this, I mean, there's this pursuit of intimacy, right?
Yes,
Um,
isn't that what it really means?
Yeah,
The innate
absolutely.
human desire and yearning to be intimate.
We're all wired to connect. We talk about this probably someone out there is making a drinking game out of how often we talk about how we're wired to connect, and they're probably just
Yeah,
tipsy off their rocker.
are they gonna say that one more time?
But we say that because it's true, right? Everything that we do when it comes to this recovery process, everything that Mark and I do, whether it's in our Dare to Connect program, whether it's in this podcast, whether it's in our clinics, it's based off of this fight for love, right? This desire to find connection, to find wholeness with other people, and to be desired and to desire others in a healthy way,
Yes.
whatever relationship that may be. It's all about connection. And so when it comes to that, right, we don't have time to go through all of these, but if we're going to talk about intimacy, what are the basic steps? I mean, one of the things that we discuss oftentimes are a fully fleshed out concept that Mark has kind of pioneered, this idea of there being 8 specific areas of intimacy. And
Well, and
and
an important question that we want to invite everyone listening today to really ask yourself: how is the culture and the world that you've grown up in confused sex and sexuality with intimacy? What's
when I think
happened
it
to that?
when I think in many ways it's what we just talked about, right? Is that so often when people, I mean, we talk about this all the time, when people hear intimacy, they think sex, right? Because even just in even just in grammatical fashion in English verbiage, the two often become interchanged, and that's been a real disservice because intimacy is so much more than that,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
We were intimate. When people hear that, they automatically think, oh, they had sex.
they had sex.
Um, well,
Yeah,
if
but we talk about in these 8 areas of intimacy. One of the ones that often throws people for a loop until they think about it is non-sexual physical intimacy.
yeah,
Non-sexual physical intimacy. I'm like, wait, what? Anytime I'm physical, isn't that just for the pure purpose of leading to sex? And actually, the answer is no. Not if you want to really get into the deepest levels of authentic intimacy. The physical part doesn't always or often lead to sex if you really understand it.
no,
That's
absolutely
just one
not.
of the 8 areas. There's emotional intimacy and intellectual intimacy and spiritual intimacy and social intimacy. So many ways that we connect at deep, deep levels.
Yeah. Well, and as always, a place like a podcast is just unfortunately all we can ever do on a podcast in many ways is I guess we go deeper than scratch the surface, but other than putting some really deep claw marks in it, sometimes you can't go much further than that because these topics are so wide ranging and varied. And we hope that all of you, as you're starting a new year, when this podcast released, it's January of 2024. We hope that wherever and whenever you're listening to this podcast, if you like what you hear, if you see if what is here resonates for you, please consider coming over and giving our Dare to Connect program for addict spouses and couples a try. We hope that you'll come on over and see what hundreds of other couples have found, which is that this pursuit, this quest for connection, this quest for healing, recovery, but not just those things, but for the best marriage and relationship with your partner in the most fulfilling and healed place that you can be in individually. That place, there's a place where you can find that at a fraction of the cost of traditional therapy. Mark and I run clinics that are full all the time, but for the cost of a couple of therapy sessions, you and your partner can be connecting with a program that gives 30 hours of content on everything imaginable in this process, as well as a lot of new features that we released this year. So we hope that you'll come take a look at that at daretoconnectnow.com is where you can grab a free 2-week trial on that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but as we,
you brought up something, Steve, that before we started today, you're always so good at this concept of being chosen. I just love that phrase in connection with intimacy. And as we read through this woman's submission, what did we really hear under all that she was saying? I want to be chosen by him. Out of
absolutely,
all the others out there in the universe of women, I want to be chosen exclusively by him. And I'm so desperate to be chosen that I was willing to go out and do all of these crazy things to be the woman that he could choose. Isn't that what we're really saying? Right?
absolutely.
What she was expressing, right?
No,
And that's really the work of this, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, and it's that work, and it's both partners, right? The overall journey here, and again, we talk about this in D2C a lot, but it's both partners. The long-term plan here has to be, again, we really honor and respect, and our hearts go out to this partner who has put so much into the physical, and that says many things, among them that she really wants this marriage to work, right? And for this relationship to be sustainable, as she put it, right, well past her 30s, well past her 40s, well past her 50s, and for it to be the kind of relationship I think that she really wants it to be, and for it to be the marriage that I think he wants it to be underneath his addiction, right? Both people in that relationship, just like each of us, is going to need to do the individual work to figure out authentically what this concept of being chosen looks like to each of them,
Yes.
right? What does that look like sexually? I'm sure that's part of it, and
Of
that's
course.
not a bad
Yeah.
thing, right? But what other pieces is that going to involve? It's painting that picture, right? For so many partners that we work with, that's one of the hardest things I think when a partner's in survival mode, right? They're right like this partner. It's like she's in this sexual game of survivor, right? I've got to compete. I've got to compete with his addiction. Well, but when you start to understand that one, you can't compete, and two, that even if you could, would that really be what you wanted anyway? Right? It starts to open the door to this question of what would sustainably being chosen and truly being chosen by my partner look like? Yes, it would look this way in physical forms. What would be all the other ways? And how would that resonate with me? And once we start to cultivate, get out of that survival mode, and we start to see that bigger picture and that vision of what this marriage could possibly be, and as the addict does the same thing, that is where a really beautiful tapestry begins to evolve.
Yes. Yes. And I'll tell you from my side in my recovery, what I came to realize is I didn't know what it meant to choose my wife.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
agree with
know.
that.
I was raised in this very physically focused, obsessed place. I was raised in the pornography production capital of the world, San Fernando Valley, California, where I was taught it's only about the physical, period. I mean, I was right there near Hollywood. I saw all the movie stars, all the porn stuff. And it was like, okay, it's all about the physical. If I'm going to choose somebody, I'm just going to choose their physical parts.
Mm,
So Mark became all about the pursuit of parts. And so I had to learn what it meant to choose. Because I can tell you, my wife now has, and she'll never fully understand, and thank God she won't. But the mindset that I was in when I was pursuing pornography and sexual outlets, like looking at people through a drinking straw, that little teeny tiny myopic little hole, she doesn't want me to pursue her in that mindset. No
mm,
way. It's like, I don't want to have anything to do with him when he's in that mindset place. And I
yeah.
thought that that was what pursuing and choosing was all about, right? Putting on my blinders and pursuing, looking for pieces of bodies.
Hmm.
There's an entire universe of pursuit and choosing that is way beyond that. And I had to learn that.
Yeah, well, and it's so much more sustainable and fulfilling as well, right? There's a depth to a relationship where intimacy is present in all of these ways that I mean, you, whatever else Mark and I may be to people listening to this, we are both experts at pursuing the unreal. Um, we spent decades trying to use sex and sexuality as a way to achieve
To achieve what?
wholeness,
Wholeness.
right?
Yeah.
To achieve completeness. And what we can tell you, we're looking straight into the camera saying this. You can't, you just hearing this, but as we wrap up, I think that's the thing that we would say is there's just nothing at the bottom of that barrel. There's not. We've
No,
been there. We've done it. We've explored it. We've pursued it. We've failed. We've pursued it some more. We've failed. We've pursued it even deeper. There's just nothing there.
the pursuit of the purely physical is insatiable.
Yes,
The way the brain works, it will never be satisfied ever. And so a partner will never compete because it can't be competed with.
absolutely.
But true intimacy can be achieved. That's the beauty. You and I, Steve, have started to embrace and understand a level of human connection that we never knew existed. And it
Absolutely.
and it just keeps getting better. It just keeps getting deeper. It is fulfilling. It is satiable. It can be completely satisfying, which we never knew existed in the other pursuit of the physical.
Absolutely. So that's our invitation to you. Cultivate the vision. Okay.
Yeah.
Start that individually and begin that pursuit and ask yourself, even if you've started this process, revisit it. This is not a one-time deal. Sit down and ask yourself, where is my relationship really right now in terms of how we're choosing each other? And what's one way that I could choose him or her better
Or deeper or more
or deeper?
expensive
Yeah.
or outside the
Or
purely
consistently.
physical. Yeah.
And then the second goal to that is, if it's safe, inquire from your partner. What's one way I could do that with you? Right.
Yeah.
So there you go.
How, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Besides just the physical, how would you like to be chosen by me?
Absolutely.
How can I choose you?
Those conversations, guys, that's where the magic happens.
I love that.
Well, as always, guys, we love and appreciate all of you. Thank you so much, and appreciate you bearing with us as we are catching up on kind of a backlog. I know we're a couple of months behind on this,
We are.
on these submissions. We'll continue to get to them. Of course, there is immediate help available at daretoconnectnow.com. We'd love to have you come over, but we will continue to work through the backlog of submissions. And if you would like to have a question answered briefly on the podcast, as always, please feel free to visit us at pbsepodcast.com. You can submit those down at the contact form below.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for being with us here today, and we'll catch you next time on PBSE.
Awesome. Take care.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.